Poor girl covers a stranger's bus fare, unaware he's a millionaire who'd change her life. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain poured hard against the windows of a nearly empty city bus. The windshield wipers moved back and forth with a slow, tired rhythm. Inside, the air smelled faintly of wet coats and old vinyl seats. Mia sat near the back, clutching her worn canvas tote. She had just finished another double shift at the diner. Her shoes were soaked, and the tips of her fingers were still numb from standing at the bus stop for 20 minutes in the cold. When the bus halted at the next stop, a man stepped in. He looked about 35, maybe older, his brown hair damp from the rain, his jacket thin and frayed at the collar. He searched his pockets awkwardly and then froze. The driver was already watching him. "Sir, it's $2.50. The driver said flatly. The man's face fell. I think I lost my wallet," he murmured. A few passengers turned to look, then quickly looked away. No one wanted to get involved. Mia bit her lip. She knew that feeling when the world treated you like you did not belong. She reached into her tote and pulled out her last crumpled bill. $2. She had saved it for a small cup of soup later, but something inside her would not let her stay silent. "Here," she said softly, standing and handing it over. "I have it." The man's eyes lifted to hers, surprised. "You really don't have to." "It's fine," she interrupted, forcing a small smile. "Just take a seat. It's raining too hard to walk." He hesitated, then nodded gratefully. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice sincere in a way that made her chest tighten. She shrugged and sat back down, pretending to look out the window. The city lights smeared across the glass like watercolor, and for a moment she almost forgot how tired she was. When the man sat 2 rows ahead, she noticed the way he watched people, the way his eyes softened when an elderly woman got on, the way he moved his bag so she could sit. There was something gentle about him, something that did not match his rough clothes. Mia turned away, embarrassed at her own curiosity. "He is just another stranger," she told herself. "You helped? That's all." But as the bus rattled through the wet streets, she felt something shift inside her small, quiet, but real. Maybe kindness was not a luxury after all. Maybe it was the only thing she had left to give. The bus stopped near downtown. The man stood, turned back to her, and said softly, "You did not even ask my name." Mia blinked. "Do I need to?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but I will remember yours." Then he stepped off into the rain, vanishing into the crowd of umbrellas. Mia sat there, clutching her empty wallet, not knowing that this small act, the moment she thought would be forgotten, was the one that would soon change her entire life. The next morning, the storm had passed, but the city still carried its gray weight. The sidewalks glistened with puddles, and the air smelled of wet asphalt. Mia stood outside the glass doors of a tall office building, clutching a manila folder that held her resume. Her stomach was empty, and her nerves hummed like a frayed wire. This interview was her only chance to get out of the diner job and start over. She checked the time on her phone. She was already 10 minutes late. The bus had broken down halfway through her route, and she had walked the last few blocks. Her shoes were soaked again. When she finally reached the reception desk, the woman behind it gave her a practiced smile. "I am here for the assistant position," Mia said, trying to steady her voice. The receptionist glanced at the clock and shook her head politely. "I am sorry. The interviewer had another meeting. You can reschedule online, please," Mia said quickly. "I came all the way here. Could I wait?" But the woman was already looking back at her computer screen. The conversation was over. Mia stood there for a moment, her throat tight, then turned and walked out into the cold wind. By the time she reached the bus stop again, the clouds had darkened. The next bus would not arrive for 30 minutes. She sat on the bench, hugging her folder to her chest, and felt the weight of everything pressing down: rent due, power bill overdue, the letter from her landlord threatening eviction. Her eyes stung, but she refused to cry. She thought of the man from last night, the one she had helped. She wondered where he was now. Maybe he had found his wallet. Maybe he had already forgotten her. Still, something about the way he said, "I will remember your name," kept replaying in her mind. It sounded less like politeness and more like a promise. Over the next few days, things grew worse. The diner cut her hours again. She skipped dinner more often, choosing to stretch her groceries a little longer. On Thursday night, her landlord knocked on the door of her small basement room. "Rent is due tomorrow." "Mia," he said firmly, "if you cannot pay, I will have to rent it to someone else. I just need a few more days," she pleaded. He said, not unkindly, but with the tiredness of someone who had heard the same words too many times. "I am sorry." When he left, Mia sat on the edge of her narrow bed, staring at the cracked wallpaper. She opened her wallet. Inside was the folded bus ticket, the one from that rainy night. For some reason, she had kept it, maybe to remind herself that doing the right thing still mattered, even when life did not reward her for it. The next morning, she packed her few belongings into a small duffel bag and left before dawn. She found a corner in the public library downtown, where the security guard let her stay as long as she kept quiet. At night, she sat by the window and watched the buses pass, wondering if the stranger was out there somewhere. She did not know that while she sat in that library, hungry and alone, the man she had helped was searching for her. He had asked the bus driver, checked the station records, even called the diner near her stop. He had remembered her name, Mia Carter, and he was not the kind of man who broke a promise, because the man she thought was not poor at all. He was Ethan Cole, the founder of the Cole Foundation, a millionaire who had gone undercover that night to study public transportation programs for his charity, and he was about to change her life in a way she could never have imagined. A week passed before Mia finally heard the knock. It was late afternoon, and she was sitting by the library window, sketching on a scrap of paper to calm her nerves. The same security guard who always smiled at her appeared beside the desk. "Someone is here asking for you," he said. She blinked, confused. "For me? Who would?" But then she saw him. The man from the bus stood in the doorway, dry this time, dressed in a clean gray coat and polished shoes. His eyes met hers, and for a moment she could not breathe. "Mia," he said softly, "I told you I would remember your name." She rose to her feet, still uncertain if she was dreaming. "What are you doing here? Did you find your wallet?" He smiled, but there was something deeper in his expression. "Yes, and I found something more important." The guard looked between them, clearly curious, but stepped away to give them space. Ethan held out a business card, thick, embossed, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "Ethan Cole, CEO, the Cole Foundation." Mia stared at it, her hands trembling slightly. You are not a commuter." "No," he said gently. "That night, I was conducting field research. Our foundation supports transportation access for low-income workers. I wanted to see what it was like, firsthand." She tried to process his words, but they bounced around in her head like raindrops against glass. "So, you are rich." He gave a small laugh. "I guess you could say that. But that night, you did not know who I was. You helped me anyway. I wanted to thank you properly." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter of offer for a full-time position at the Cole Foundation's design department, assisting with their upcoming campaign. The salary was enough to cover her rent and more. "I do not understand," she said quietly. "Why me?" "Because I believe in giving opportunities to people who see others as humans, not transactions," Ethan replied. "You helped me when everyone else turned away. That told me everything I needed to know about your character." Mia felt her throat tighten. It was the first time in months that someone had spoken to her as if she mattered. Still, part of her hesitated. "Are you sure I can do this? I do not have the degree. I have never worked in an office." He nodded with calm certainty. "I am not hiring your resume, Mia. I am hiring your heart. Skills can be taught, kindness cannot." Her eyes filled with tears she could not stop. "I do not know what to say." "Say yes," he replied with a gentle smile. "Come by tomorrow morning. Let us start a new chapter." The next day, Mia walked through the glass doors of the Cole Foundation building. The receptionist greeted her by name. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. Ethan met her in the lobby, dressed sharply but smiling, the same warm smile he had given her on the bus. As he led her through the halls, filled with sunlight and framed photographs of community projects. Mia felt the world shift beneath her feet. The girl who had given away her last $2 was now stepping into a life built on that single act of faith. And as Ethan watched her take it all in, he thought to himself that maybe, for the first time in years, he was the one being saved. The first week at the Cole Foundation felt like a dream that Mia was afraid to wake from. Each morning, she arrived early, still unsure if the security guards would recognize her. The glass elevators, the scent of polished wood, the quiet hum of conversations, it was all new. Her desk sat near the large window overlooking downtown. And every time she looked outside, she had to remind herself that she belonged here now. Ethan checked on her often. He did not act like the CEOs she had imagined, cold, distant, untouchable. He listened. He asked how she was doing. If the workload was too heavy, if she had eaten lunch. Sometimes, when the office grew quiet, he would stop by her desk to talk about their upcoming charity campaign. "Do you still sketch?" he asked one afternoon. Mia hesitated, then opened the small notebook she kept hidden in her drawer. Inside were drawings of faces she had seen on the bus, quick sketches of commuters and strangers. Ethan studied them with genuine admiration. "You have an eye for real people," he said. "We need that. Most campaigns forget what humanity looks like." Her cheeks warmed. "They are just doodles." He shook his head. "No. They are stories. You see people the way our foundation wants the world to see them." From that day forward, it gave her a quiet assignment: to design a small poster series called Ride Forward, a campaign promoting free bus passes for workers who could not afford daily fare. Mia poured her heart into it. She spent evenings sketching, rewriting slogans, studying color palettes. When she presented the final drafts, Ethan's expression softened with pride. "This is perfect," he said. "You turned your own story into something that will help thousands." But even as she thrived, Mia could not shake her uncertainty. Late at night, when she walked back to her small apartment, she sometimes wondered if she deserved any of it. The voice in her head whispered, "He is a millionaire. You are nobody." She kept her distance at work, staying professional, careful not to cross lines. Ethan, sensing her hesitation, never pushed, only offered quiet encouragement. One Friday evening, after everyone had left, Mia stayed behind to finish a design mock-up. She did not notice Ethan standing by the doorway until he spoke softly. "You should go home, Mia. It is late." She looked up, startled. "I just wanted to finish this page." He walked closer, his tone light. "You remind me of myself years ago, too afraid to rest, afraid it would all disappear." She smiled faintly. "Maybe it is still hard to believe that I deserve to be here." Ethan leaned on the edge of her desk, thoughtful. "You earned this, not because of charity, but because you care. That night on the bus, you saw a person in need, not a stranger. That is the same reason you belong in this work." The office lights cast a soft glow on his face. For the first time, she saw not the CEO, but the man, the same quiet kindness she had seen that night in the rain. A silence lingered between them, gentle but heavy. "I kept the bus ticket," he said finally. "It reminds me that goodness is still real." Her eyes widened. "You kept it?" He nodded. "It is framed in my office. I like to think of it as our first project together." Mia laughed softly, the sound half surprise, half gratitude. In that moment, something inside her shifted again. Less fear, more trust. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like her life was building toward something good. Outside, the city lights blinked against the dark glass, and somewhere beyond them, a bus rolled past on its route, just another reminder that one small act of kindness could change everything. A month later, Mia's posters for the Ride Forward campaign filled the lobby of the Cole Foundation. The launch event had drawn reporters, city officials, and dozens of bus drivers and community workers who would benefit from the new program. She stood quietly near the back, watching people stop to read her designs, faces of real commuters, paired with a simple line of text: "No one should have to choose between getting to work and eating dinner." When Ethan took the stage to give his speech, his voice carried through the room with quiet confidence. "This campaign began because of one small act of kindness," he said. scanning the crowd until his gaze found hers. Someone once gave up her last $2 to help a stranger get home. She did not know that stranger was me, and she did not ask for anything in return. That one gesture reminded me why we do this work, to see each other, even in hard times. Mia's heart thudded in her chest. The audience turned their heads, following Ethan's glance toward her. He smiled softly, then continued. So today, this project is not just a foundation initiative. It is a promise to keep that kindness alive, one ride at a time. When the applause rose, Mia felt tears sting her eyes. She had never been publicly recognized before. People approached to shake her hand, to thank her for her design, for the story behind it. For the first time in her life, she did not feel invisible. Later that evening, as the guests left and the staff cleaned up, Ethan found her standing by the display board. "You handled that spotlight better than I did," he teased gently. She laughed, still wiping the corners of her eyes. "I was terrified. I have never seen that many people look at me at once." "They were not looking at you," he said. "They were seeing what kindness looks like when it takes shape." She turned to him, studying his face. "You really believe that night meant that much?" "I do," he replied. "It changed the way I see everything. I used to measure success in numbers. Now I see it in moments." There was a pause, the kind that felt like the air itself was holding its breath. "Ethan," she said softly, "why me? Out of all the people you could have helped, why did you choose me?" He smiled, his voice low. "Because you reminded me of what I had forgotten, that money means nothing if it cannot make someone's day a little lighter. You did that for me without knowing who I was. The least I could do was make sure your story does not end on that bus." Her lips parted, but no words came. Gratitude, confusion, and something deeper stirred inside her chest. Before she could speak, one of the coordinators called Ethan over. He gave her a small nod before walking away. That night, Mia lingered long after everyone had gone. The lobby lights dimmed, and the reflections of her posters shimmered on the marble floor. She walked up to one of them and traced her finger over the tagline she had written herself. Then she noticed something at the bottom corner of the frame. Etched in fine print were the words, "Inspired by M.C." Her initials. She smiled through tears. The man she once thought was just a lost commuter had quietly turned her story into hope for thousands. What she did not know was that Ethan's next step was already in motion, a project designed around her vision, and a decision that would tie their lives together more than either of them yet understood. Outside, the city lights burned steady against the night, and a bus rolled past, its windows glowing gold. For Mia, that sound no longer meant struggle. It meant beginnings. 2 weeks after the Ride Forward campaign, the Cole Foundation headquarters was buzzing again. Donations poured in, the media praised the project, and new volunteers signed up every day. Yet in the middle of the success, Mia noticed that Ethan seemed quieter than usual. He still smiled and congratulated the team, but his eyes carried a heaviness she had not seen before. One afternoon, she found him in his office, standing by the window. The framed bus ticket hung on the wall behind him. Sunlight glinted off the glass, casting a warm glow across his desk. "You look like you have not slept in days," she said softly. He turned, surprised, then chuckled, guilty. "There is a lot happening. Expansion plans, new donors, meetings that never end. You built something incredible. Ethan, maybe you should enjoy it a little." He smiled faintly. "I am trying. But success brings noise. Everyone wants something from me, more funding, more influence, more everything. Sometimes I miss the quiet." Mia tilted her head. "The quiet of the bus." He laughed quietly. "Exactly that. That night was the first time in years I had felt invisible in a good way. No meetings, no titles, no expectations, just a person." She nodded, understanding more than she could say. "You are still that person," she said, "at least to me." For a moment, he looked at her as if those words had reached somewhere deep inside him. The tension in his shoulders eased. "Thank you, Mia. That means more than you think." Days later, Ethan called her into a conference room. The long table was covered with folders and sketches, plans for a new initiative. "I wanted you to be the first to see this," he said. "It is your idea." "Really? We are calling it Open Hands. Mobile kitchens, community spaces, outreach centers." all designed using your visual concept of accessibility and dignity. She covered her mouth in shock. You want me to lead this? I want you to help shape it. He corrected gently. You will work directly with me and the leadership team. We will take the same spirit that started Ride Forward and give it bigger wings. Mia's heart pounded. Ethan, this is huge. I am not sure I am qualified for that kind of responsibility. He shook his head with a reassuring smile. You said that the first day you walked in here. And look where you are now. She stared at him for a long moment, emotions swelling in her chest. Why do you keep believing in me? Because you believed in me first, he said simply. You saw a man who had nothing and still offered kindness. You may think I changed your life, but the truth is, you changed mine. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the city below. Mia felt her throat tighten, her heart caught between gratitude and something she dared not name. Later that night, she found herself outside the building, looking up at the rows of lit windows. She thought about how far she had come from a tired waitress counting her last dollars to a woman shaping projects that touched thousands of lives. And at the center of it all stood Ethan, a man who had once been a stranger on a rainy bus. When she finally turned to leave, her reflection in the glass door made her pause. She was no longer just surviving, she was becoming, and deep down, she knew that the story between her and Ethan was far from over. It was only beginning to find its true purpose. As the Open Hands project grew, so did Mia's responsibilities. She spent long nights drafting proposals, attending community meetings, and visiting shelters across the city. Her designs now appeared on buses, billboards, and social media. People recognized her face, but she still caught herself thinking of the girl who once sat alone on that rainy bus, unsure where her next meal would come from. Through it all, Ethan remained her anchor. He trusted her with decisions others doubted, defended her ideas in board meetings, and always reminded her to rest. But as the project gained attention, the Foundation's board began to worry. One afternoon, Mia walked into a meeting and immediately sensed the tension. A man in a navy suit, the chief financial officer, cleared his throat. Ethan, this new project is costing us millions. The returns are not visible yet. Some of the donors are concerned. Ethan's tone stayed calm. We are not building returns, we are building change. The man frowned. You are risking your credibility. And frankly, your reputation? People are starting to think your personal attachment to this initiative is clouding your judgment. Mia froze, realizing what he meant. A few board members exchanged knowing glances. Ethan's expression darkened, but his voice remained steady. If by personal attachment you mean believing in my team, then yes, I am guilty of that. When the meeting ended, Mia stayed behind. It's shaken. I am sorry, she said quietly. I did not mean to cause problems. He looked at her, surprised. You did not. Do not take their fears as truth. They measure everything in profit because that is all they know. But they think I am the reason you are distracted. She whispered. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mia, listen to me. You are not the problem. You are the proof that compassion still works. And I will not apologize for that. His words steadied her. But inside she felt something new, fear mixed with a deeper emotion she had been avoiding. She cared about him more than she should have. The line between gratitude and affection had blurred, and the thought terrified her. That evening, she sat in the quiet of her apartment, staring at the framed copy of the Ride Forward poster Ethan had given her. The quote at the bottom read, "Kindness always finds its way home." She traced the letters with her fingertip, wondering what home meant now. The next morning, when she arrived at the foundation, whispers filled the hallway. Someone had leaked an article online, an anonymous piece suggesting that Ethan was favoring Mia unfairly, that her rise within the organization was romantically motivated. The headline felt like a slap. By noon, the story had spread across every business blog in the city. The comments were cruel, from waitress to Millionaire's pet project. One read, Mia's hands trembled as she scrolled through them. Every cruel word reopened an old wound she thought she had buried. She walked into Ethan's office, pale and shaken. "We need to fix this," she said. "I cannot let them destroy what you built." Ethan looked up from his desk, eyes calm but burning with resolve. "We will fix it," he said, "but not by hiding. The truth will speak louder than gossip. She wanted to believe him. But as she left his office, she caught sight of the boardroom door closing, voices rising inside. For the first time since that rainy night on the bus, Mia felt truly scared. The kindness that had once saved her life was now being used to question her worth. And somewhere, deep down, she wondered if the very story that brought them together was about to tear them apart. The next few days were a blur of headlines and silence. Mia stopped checking her phone. Every notification felt like another cut she could not defend against. The once warm smiles around the office had turned into whispers behind closed doors. When she walked into the building that Monday morning, people avoided her eyes. In the corner office, Ethan stood by the blinds, reading yet another article, accusing him of favoritism and mismanagement. His board had demanded an emergency meeting. When Mia knocked on his door, he turned quickly, worry shadowing his usually steady face. "You should not be here today," he said gently. "The press is outside. They are waiting for a photograph, for anything they can twist." "I cannot hide," she replied. "If I stay home, it looks like I am guilty of something." Isida, rubbing his temple. "You should not have to carry this weight. Mia, I am the one they are after. But they are using me to get to you," she said, her voice trembling. "And that is worse." There was a long silence before he spoke again. "Let me handle the board. They will want a statement, and I will give it." Mia took a deep breath. "What will you tell them?" "The truth," he said simply. "That kindness does not need to be justified." That afternoon, the boardroom was full. The tension in the air was heavy enough to cut. The chairman leaned forward, voice sharp. "Ethan, we built this foundation on credibility. The press believes you are romantically involved with an employee who lacks experience. That narrative is damaging everything we stand for." Ethan did not flinch. "The only thing damaging this foundation is the idea that compassion is weakness. Mia Carter earned her place here. Her work revived this organization and restored the public's faith in what we do." The chairman crossed his arms. "Perception matters more than truth. Ethan, you know that. Then change the perception," Ethan said firmly. "Tell them the truth instead of hiding from it." When the meeting ended, he walked out to find Mia waiting by the elevators. She searched his face for answers. "They want me to suspend you temporarily," he said quietly, "just until the noise dies down." Mia's breath caught. "Suspend me? After everything we have done?" "I told them no," he said, "but they can overrule me." She felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. "Ethan, maybe it is better if I step away for a while. I do not want to hurt what you built." He looked at her sharply. "Do not say that. You are not the problem. Mia, you are the reason any of this matters." Her eyes filled with tears. "Then what do we do?" He hesitated, then said, quietly, "We tell our story before they rewrite it for us." That evening, against his advisor's warnings, Ethan called for a press conference in the foundation's atrium. Reporters packed the room, their cameras flashing like lightning. Mia stood behind him, hands shaking. Ethan spoke calmly but with conviction. "A rumor has spread that questions the integrity of our work and the woman who helped create it. I will say this, once our mission was born from an act of selfless kindness. Mia Carter gave her last $2 to a stranger because she believed everyone deserves a chance. That belief built the Ride Forward campaign, the Open Hands initiative, and everything we have accomplished since. If that is favoritism, then I am proud to be guilty." The room fell silent. Cameras clicked, but no one interrupted. Ethan turned, meeting Mia's eyes. For a moment, all the noise in the world disappeared. Outside, the news broke within minutes. Some headlines still twisted the story, but others began to shift. CEO defends employee with grace. Kindness, born on a bus, becomes a movement. Later that night, as the office lights dimmed, Mia sat alone by the framed bus ticket in Ethan's office. The glass caught the reflection of her face, tired but unbroken. For the first time in days, she felt something she had lost hope. Because even in the storm, Ethan had not hidden her story. He had made it his own. The storm finally began to fade. A week after the press conference, the noise around the foundation quieted. The tabloids moved on to new scandals, and the story that once threatened to destroy Mia's reputation slowly turned into something else, a symbol of integrity. Donations rose again, and volunteers returned. The Open Hands project launched on schedule. stronger than before. Mia worked quietly through those days, keeping her focus on the people they were helping. Still, she avoided interviews and cameras. She wanted the attention to be on the work, not her name. Yet every morning when she walked into the building, someone would smile and whisper, "That is her." Not in pity this time, but in respect. One afternoon, she entered Ethan's office to deliver a report. He was standing by the window, looking out at the skyline glowing in the sunset. The light caught the framed bus ticket on the wall. "They approved the next phase," she said softly. "We are expanding to 5 cities." He turned toward her, smiling. "I knew you would make it happen." "We made it happen," she corrected. "You and I." He studied her for a moment, the silence stretching between them. "You know," he said quietly, "there was a time I thought money could fix anything, but you proved that people can change the world with something much simpler." "What is that?" she asked. "Kindness," he said. "And courage." She smiled, her heart full. "I only did what anyone would have done." "No," he said, stepping closer. "You did what very few people do. You believed in someone when there was nothing to gain." Mia felt tears sting her eyes. "You gave me a second chance when I had nothing left." "That was never charity," he replied softly. "That was gratitude." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The city lights flickered beyond the glass, and the sound of traffic rose like a steady heartbeat below. Then Ethan walked to his desk and opened a small box. Inside was the original bus ticket, preserved behind new glass. At the bottom, he had engraved a single line. "One small act can change 2 lives." He handed it to her. "It belongs to both of us now." Her breath caught. "Ethan, I cannot." "You can," he said, "because it started with you." She held the frame in her hands, the weight of it warm and steady. When she looked up, he was still watching her, his expression gentle but sure. "I have one more question," he said. "Would you let me take you somewhere that does not involve meetings, speeches, or reporters?" Mia laughed softly through the tears. "That sounds suspiciously like a date." "Maybe it is," he said with a grin. "But this time, I promise I will bring my wallet." The laugh they shared felt like release, like sunlight breaking through after months of rain. That weekend, they attended the opening of the first Open Hands Center together. Children ran through the courtyard. Volunteers served meals, and the walls were covered with murals inspired by Mia's designs. She stood beside Ethan, watching it all unfold, and whispered, "I used to think kindness was just something small. I never imagined it could build something this big." Ethan looked at her, his voice low and sincere. "It built us." Mia turned to him, the noise of the celebration fading into the background. "Do you think people will ever stop doubting?" she asked. He shook his head. "Maybe not. But that is the beauty of it. We do not need everyone to believe just enough to keep kindness alive." She smiled, resting her hand over his. Together they looked at the crowd, at the future they had helped create. The rain had stopped, the sky had cleared, and in that quiet, she realized something simple and true. Kindness had not only changed her life, it had given her one worth living for.